Mr. Senator and everyone, it's it's our pleasure to give this presentation to you, and because the time is limited, so maybe I just jump to the subject. First, I will tell you a short story, a brief story of Y Foundation, and then the Finnish political background of this housing policy and homelessness policy. And Juha will dive deeper into the housing first system. What does it mean in Finland? And then at the end, we've wrapped it up where we have managed, what has been the challenges, and what you can get when you tackle the homelessness and you eradicate the homelessness. And to start, it was 1985. There were very hard winters in Finland, like Winnipeg winters, I would call that, to compare something to. So we had over 20,000 homeless persons in Finland out of 5.5 million people, the whole population in Finland. And during those hard winters, quite many rough sleepers were dying on the streets. And then few strong politicians decided that enough is enough. In a welfare society like in Finland, it's not bearable to allow people to die on the streets because of coldness and because they don't have a roof, no place to go. And then they collected a group of bigger cities, trade unions, and church, and municipal organization, mental health organization, Red Cross, and they then established Y Foundation. And to work together has been very important in Finland, and to take everyone on the board has been very useful and successful, and it has made it possible to be successful. And then when the Y Foundation was established, we started from scratch. Our purpose was to start to acquire homes for people experiencing homelessness. And now, after a few decades, Y Foundation has now over 19,000 apartments. 1/3 of them is for people experiencing homelessness with special needs, those Y homes. And this is the tackling homelessness stock. And then we have these M2 homes, which is state-subsidized affordable homes for people with low incomes. These are so-called preventative part of this, our whole housing stock. And we have been in Finland maybe the most successful country in the world who has managed to reduce the homelessness in the long term all the time, also through the COVID time. Also, other Scandinavian countries are doing pretty good work, also Austria and so on. So many countries are using this housing first method, and it has made it possible in Finland that we have reduced the homelessness as much as we have. And now in this diagram you can see, since 1987 was the first year when we made official statistics of homelessness. We are now we have now 3,429 homeless persons now officially, the latest statistics we got in February this year. And this number includes also rough sleepers, people in shelters, people in temporary accommodation, and people living with relatives and friends. In many countries, they don't count the people who live with relatives and friends to these statistics, but in Finland we do. All the people without permanent address are included in these statistics. Of course, there are some, overall the statistics, there's something that is not so accurate, but this is as accurate we can do it. And we have managed to reduce the homelessness 83% since 1985. It's a huge number. It's a huge percentage. And what we did then, and through the decades, what we learned was that we have to change our mindset first, not only to respond to emergency situations. And this is the case in many countries. Just the response to for the people experiencing, people on the streets, give them shelters, give them temporary accommodation. That's not the solution to solve the problem. You have to see where it starts and what you can do for it. The prevention part was too small and the housing part was too small. We just reacted to the problem. Then we changed our mindset that if we want to get permanent solutions and we want to reduce it, not just to keep it up, we have to concentrate on prevention. This is the most important part. Of course, there's still people find themselves in the homelessness situation because as a phenomenon, you can't end the homelessness, but you can end it to become that it lasts long. So you can cut the time they spend in shelters in temporary accommodation. So the emergency response should be quick services that you can give a permanent home for people experiencing homelessness and give them all the support they need, because they are always, mostly they need some support, because to be a homeless person, it means that you have to survive every day. You can't solve your problems without a permanent address. Drug using problems, economical problems, social problems, whatever there might be, mental health problems, and so on. So they always need some kind of help, and that is what we have to accept also. They need help. But if you concentrate and invest on the prevention part, there's much less to invest to the emergency response and to housing. And the next slide, please. And since 2008, in Finland, every governmental program has included also homelessness program. The 2008 was a turning point because then we haven't managed well enough in our strategy to tackle homelessness. Then we took a new perspective and we adopted this Finnish housing first model. Juha will explain that later. What does it mean that the Finnish model of housing first? And that was a year. There was a worldwide economical crisis, financial crisis, but also we had the right-wing government, and the government there was a housing minister from National Coalition Party who was a visionary and could see if we invest on homelessness, it will be an investment to a better urban environment, better better living standards for people experiencing homelessness, and better for all the families, better for everyone, better for society, better for also the economics. And now we can see the results. And since then, we have had those programs, and the last one has now started when we had the last summer, the new government took a stage. We had an election last year, so now we have this latest program started its work. And now we have decided that we will end the long-term homelessness by 2027. And the next one, please. And now, Juha, it's your turn, please.
Yes, just little problems with the mic as usual. But yeah, from my behalf, it's better to be here, and thank you for the invite. And I hope you find our presentation really useful for your own work as well. So this is the Finnish Housing First. And then unlike the original US model or the model that it's in use in Canada, for example, the Finnish Housing First is designed for anyone facing homelessness or who are on the risk of becoming homeless. So it doesn't matter if you are a long-term homeless person or short-term homeless person. We don't have these kind of groups regarding who Housing First is available for. It's the holistic approach how we do the work in the field of homelessness altogether. And of course, Housing First, it starts with housing. So we have different housing options for people. They are always permanent, so people have a rental agreement of their own for unlimited time. And then 80% of the former homeless people, they live in scattered housing. And then we also have these Housing First units, which means that there can be, for example, 50 apartments in one building, and then the support services are on site 24/7, but I will show you some pictures later on. So we feel that people should have options when it comes to housing as well, because not everyone wants to live in an individual apartment around the cities, and then they usually don't know anyone from the building, and so on. They feel like the fear of loneliness is so strong that they would like to have this kind of communal living environment, and that's why we offer different solutions for people. And then the support, always tailor-made as long as needed. I think that's quite self-mandatory, like they explained, that people need support, and then we should give it to them, and always tailor-made and as long as needed. And that's usually how the Housing First goes in many countries, but we feel like that the affordable housing stock we have in Finland is part of the work. Of course, we have around 400,000 affordable homes in Finland, which equals around 13% of all housing stock in Finland. And of course, we are in a lucky position that we have that amount of affordable houses and homes in Finland. And of course, the politicians back in the day, in the early 1990s and 2008, were brave enough to keep building affordable housing, even though in many countries, for example, in Canada, many you have stopped building affordable houses in the 1990s. But in Finland, the politicians saw that, in the future, we need more affordable housing, and that will pay off eventually. And that has happened in Finland, of course. And then the number 4 is really, really important. Like Teija mentioned, that even in many countries, they are housing more homeless people than ever. But at the same time, there is not enough preventive work. There is not enough affordable homes for people. So that's why the change is not that visible regarding the numbers, because more people are ending up being homeless altogether than they can house. So I think that, of course, the affordable housing stock is the best structural element against homelessness, but then also we have developed these housing advice services, which means that if you struggle to pay the rent, you have some kind of issues with your neighbors, you can contact these housing advice services, and they can help you help you with your issues. And then I think good example is that you lost your job, you don't know how to claim the unemployment benefit, for example. It's a quite usual thing. So you can contact these services and they make sure that you fill the right form and you can claim the benefit and you are able to pay the rent or mortgage, for example. And then especially in the housing first units, we feel like that people need low threshold work activities. People need something to fulfill their days, because the reality is that many people, they struggle with some kind of challenges, are they mental health challenges, substance misuse, or whatever. And the first thing in the morning, there can be two choices, either to open the puddle or go to work. And if the work is literally downstairs, it's quite in quite many cases, people chose to go to work for 1 hour a month, 1 hour a week, 5 hours a day. They can choose it by themselves. So it's also a really good harm reduction work to do these low threshold work activities that people have something to do during their days instead of spending the whole day in their apartment, for example. And then we wrap this all under one word, normality. So people have normal rental agreements as anyone else. They use the same social and health services as anyone else. They can claim the same benefits as anyone else, and so on. They are part of the neighborhood, part of the communities as anyone else. So in that sense, we feel that that one word, normality, is a really important one. And this is why we do it. So shelters, hostels, temporary accommodation, like Teija mentioned, they only manage homelessness, but they will not end it for anyone. So that's why we move into housing first with the different housing solutions and the support for people, so that we can actually end homelessness and not only manage it. And in many countries, of course, there is still this old staircase model where people have to earn the housing, so that you need to get sober, you need to get rid of the mental health challenges, you need to get a job or whatever. And after you have done those things, then the housing is there as a price. And then, but we have moved away from that system into this kind of that housing is a human right. Everyone deserves a housing, and then the support they need, and that's how we make sure that everyone will succeed. And this is a picture from the Helsinki new living area called Jätkäsaari, near the city center on the seaside. It's a really nice location. And the building with the yellow stripe, Y Foundation, we have built that one. There is 62 affordable homes for low-income people, and there is also 2 former homeless persons living in that building. And it's a really expensive area. And the other buildings, they are owner-occupied buildings, so people own their own apartments, and a duplex around 50 square meters can cost anything between 500,000 to 600,000 euros. I don't know how to do the calculation to Canadian dollars, but to put it briefly, it's expensive in the Finnish context. And there in the middle of all is affordable housing. And then Helsinki has been quite innovative regarding how they do their zoning, for example. So the goal is to have 25% of affordable housing, all the new living areas. And that has worked quite well because we have avoided segregation. The social integration works well. People with different backgrounds, different income levels share the same services, same areas, and the kids play in the same playgrounds. So in that sense, Helsinki has done marvelous work, because in many cases when cities are building affordable housing, they build affordable housing on the outskirts of the cities, and of course that creates different kind of challenges. And then, like Teija mentioned, we went all in with the housing first in 2008, and then we knew that when we go all in, we want to get rid of most of the shelters and temporary accommodation, so people could have permanent homes. So this is a former shelter in the city of Espoo, not too far from Helsinki. And then when we started the housing first, this was one of the shelters that we want to renovate, or actually this one we demolished and built a completely new house instead. But here it was a normal shelter, 45 bed places, people sharing a room with 3 or 4 other people. And then there's a bed, small locker. Support was basically non-existent. So if there was a fight or something like that, the guard could throw you out, but anything else didn't exist. But now it looks like this. It's a housing first unit, 33 individual apartments, for former homeless people. And then there is on-site support services 24/7 offered by the Salvation Army. And I think it's a good example of a cooperation as well, because Y Foundation, we have built this one, and then we leased the whole building to the city of Espoo, and then the city of Espoo is buying the support services from the Salvation Army. So you need to have all the key stakeholders into one table and working together to have good results. But it looks just like normal house, even though it's a housing first unit. People live there, they have their own apartments, own rental agreements, support is there, and there is also those low threshold work activities on site. So for example, they clean the whole building by themselves, they do the maintenance work by themselves, and then there is also connections with private companies who order different kind of work activities from the unit and so on. And of course, when people work, they get paid while they do it. But I think these are quite good examples that people need different housing solutions, and Scattered and these units has worked pretty well in the Finnish context, at least. Then Teija, please go ahead.
And now I continue to financing this whole system. In Finland, the state is one who is giving the grants, giving the subsidies, and the institutions like Y Foundation is building, buying, and providing the homes. But state is supporting by grants and by benefits of it. And when we build new homes, like Juha just showed, for example, Jätkäsaari, that block of houses, so we take a loan from a bank and we get the state subsidy, interest subsidy from the state, and put a little bit own capital to it too, from 5 to 20%. And then a small amount of these acquiring homes in those single apartments, we get financing from lottery money. And these homes are mainly for people with special needs. And we buy with those grants single apartments, and these grants guarantee that the rent is affordable for people. And when we build those new homes, we get that loan. It's 40 years. The maturity is 40 years, and that guarantees that that when you pay back the loan in monthly, it's not too much, and you can keep the rent level reasonable. And how we don't have a charity system to finance like Y Foundation. Y Foundation is the one who provides the homes, and we are working together with state and municipalities, and this, the municipalities and the welfare counties and the state finance the services for people. And they can buy the services from NGOs, from different kind of organizations, or provide them by themselves. Otatko sä Juha seuraavan? And how can a homeless person pay for rent and services? Where they get the money, they get it from different benefits, different sources. It depends. You can be retired or get an unemployment benefit, or basic social security assistance, or supplementary assistance. We have a quite generous benefit system in Finland, I have to say. And then we have this housing benefits, general housing benefits. Everyone whose income level is low enough can get a general housing benefit, but it's not a lot, but you can survive and you can keep your home, that you don't lose your home because of the lack of the income. That's why it's quite generous. And the state and the welfare counties, well-being service counties, that this is new system in Finland. There was that new act started last year, so we are creating the system, and so they are now organizing it in a new way. But anyhow, it provides all the services people who needs them and pay all the costs. But what are the critical elements of ending homelessness? On a society level, you need affordable housing stock. Finland never stopped to build state-subsidized homes, like in Britain or many other countries, and like in Canada in 1990s. We never stop it. And it's about 13% of the whole housing stock in Finland, this state-subsidized homes. And I think this is very crucial to prevent the homelessness. And it's very good also to keep the society economically on a good path. And then we have the general housing benefit, and it has to be big enough to work, to be efficient. And then this implementation of housing first method that we created in Finland, this that there's very wide options for people to find the right place for themselves. But it needs that you have to work together with state, with municipalities, with NGOs, with private sector. Everyone should be involved with this system. It has taken many years, and it hasn't been easy, but the results are good. And we have been very practical. We have taken small steps all the time and put concrete goals, not only written papers, just concrete goals. And we did what we promised, and we have got results. As we have converted the shelters for permanent housing first homes, that has been very successful. And on individual level, this housing first has been a mainstream policy. It has worked. The people who get those rental agreements and all the tailored support they need, some of them come back to the society and get to become taxpayers. Some of them not, but you have to accept it. But they can keep mostly their home, and it reduce harm in society overall, in a common level. And then there should be those alternative housing solutions and tailor-made support. It's very important. And before Juha continues here, we have also got some failures. It has taken time. There's always the resistance somewhere, and some people think that this is wasting money. But the result shows that it has been a good investment. And please, Juha, will you show what you can reach if you end the homelessness?
Yeah, thanks, Teija. And like Teija mentioned, not everyone agrees that we should help homeless people. They don't care about homeless people. That's the reality we are living today. And unfortunately, we also need to communicate the work we are doing in a certain way as well, so that we also reach these people and can have a conversation with them. And so this is what we do, for example. So Helsinki has more or less ended street homelessness. So if you ever visit Helsinki, you won't find tents, encampments, or people sleeping in sleeping bags anywhere. And of course, that's one of the things that we are really proud of. And at the Y Foundation, we have many hundreds of visitors a year, and they always say the same thing, that where are all the homeless people, because it's not a visible phenomenon anymore in Finland and in Helsinki. So this is what we try to communicate with those who don't agree that housing is a human right, so that, you know, it's a safer and more pleasant city for everyone, for the whole public, when we take care of the people who are in the most vulnerable situation. It's good for the local community, it's good for the visitors, tourists, businesses, restaurants, cafes, and then it can also lure in some foreign investments. You never know. So this is one of the things that we try to communicate nowadays as well. And also that ending homelessness is a cost-effective and profitable use of the public finances. So we have made calculations in Finland and studies that when you house someone from the streets or from the shelter or temporary accommodation and you give the support they need, you will end up saving around 15,000 euros per person per year. And then there are many studies around the world saying the same story, that you actually end up saving money in the long run. And usually the savings are anything between 5,000 to 20,000 euros per person per year. But then there are also these other things as well. And I think in January, when we were in Ottawa and Canada, we learned that in city of Toronto, for example, there is one hospital where 150 street homeless persons were using the emergency services 11,000 times during a 6 month period. And then they were explaining what that means in reality is that if you, for example, have a heart attack and you need to go to an emergency room, you have to wait. You will not get the help immediately, even though you have a heart attack. So when we take care of the people, they have the home of their own, the support they need. They don't need to use these emergency services, which are really expensive. And also the hospitals and many other organizations can put their resources into other things. So it's good for the cities, it's good for the public, it's a wise use of the money, and of course, the main thing is that it's good for the people, that they get the home of their own and the support they need. And then I think, Teija, you can wrap our presentation up.
So thank you, Juha. And to say the last word, we have worked a lot with Canadians and made research. We have involved research projects and having training sessions and so on. And so here you can see, I don't want to read this through, but you can see, you can get this presentation, how much we have done, what are the contacts. So we know you have a good research and results there, and you have many good, plenty of good elements in Canada to tackle the question, and you as politicians, that's what I have to say. You are you are the one who have the keys. You have all the elements to do all what's needed for this homelessness question, and we are very proud that we have got the possibility to discuss with you and know what the situation in Canada is. And we in Finland has been some kind of global laboratory, and we are not comparable in many ways to any other country. But because we don't have these same questions of indigenous people or immigrants. Of course, we have them, but they are so minor part of this homelessness problem that it's not a big issue. Not yet. We don't know the future, because we can see the clouds in the sky too. We have our new parliament has cut the benefits and so on, so we never know the future. But until now, we think we have done a pretty good work that we are proud of. But we also want to wish you that think big. That it's important to believe that someday there's home for all. So we did that. I think it's been hard work, but we are quite near to enter homelessness in Finland. Thank you from our behalf.
Thank you. And I think one of the most important thing is to take action, because I think that we all have the tools, and in many cases we have the resources already, and now we just need to take a stand and start working. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much to both of you for encouraging us to think big and take action. We already spend, it's estimated more than $80 billion a year keeping people in poverty in this country. And so strikes me there's a lot of resources that could be reinvested. And so I suspect there are people who have questions. So, and yes, I see a question. We will be circulating the deck. We also have audio taped or videotaped this. And so we will be making the slides available to everybody who's attended. I'm very pleased to see former Senator Eggleton on the screen as well, who is part of one of the initiators of this All-Party Anti-Poverty Caucus. So thank you for joining us and for continuing to inspire us. Any questions here? Yeah, Senator Quinn.
Thank you, and thank you for such an informative presentation, and congratulations to the work that you folks have achieved and accomplished over in Finland. It's remarkable to hear your story. I come from a part of Canada, New Brunswick on the East Coast, and am very involved with poverty and education results in my hometown. And one of the things that we found, and you've mentioned at the beginning of your presentation, the linkage between poverty and homelessness. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more about the levels of poverty and how that links to education, and also how it links to health in terms of mental illness and drug addictions, and how you deal with that in this whole story, because it's a remarkable story. I'd just like to know a little bit more about those linkages.
Mä voin aloittaa. Thank you for the question. It's quite proud to tackle here in this one answer, but in Finland we have put perspective on the poverty, so that if you give the possibility to you finance the basic needs, that's also the key to help people to get more educated and to find the jobs and so on. And some economists says that this housing allowance, housing benefit, is part of it's part of supporting the salary, because some salaries are not high enough to cover all the living costs. We know there are some jobs that are not paid very well. But the mostly concerns this poverty question of young people between moving from home to and getting graduated. So and most of young people in Finland get some kind of education. But there is a direct link between poverty and homelessness. But in Finland, we have most tackled this poverty homelessness because of the housing allowances. And we have this only 3,400 homeless persons in Finland. They are the most difficult somehow. They are those people who have different kind of symptoms that they need tailored support to. So, and the study from Denmark shows that most of also people living with relatives, homeless people are living with relatives or friends, have some kind of mental problems. So they always need help from society, from the system. and we know the difference between Finland and most other countries. We have mostly tackled the homelessness because of the economics, the family and personal economics. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can
There's the link between, yeah.
Yeah, and just to add a couple of things, I think in Finland we have this kind of balance of possibilities, meaning that we have a universal school system, a universal healthcare, and free university, and these kind of things, which are also good tools to tackle poverty among young children and young adults as well. And then, like Teija mentioned, I think it's really important to understand that there is a big link between poverty and mental health issues for sure, and to make sure that we understand that link and take that link very seriously, and understand that when you are stressing with the finances, there is also the possibility that because of those mental health challenges you end up being homeless altogether, even though you could survive financially. So that's something that we need to make sure that stays on a good path in Finland as well, I think, in the future. Like Teija mentioned, we have the new government, and there are some dark clouds in the sky, and then how to work with those dark clouds is something that we need to figure out for sure.
And maybe I continue that in Finland we have this kind of way of thinking that is also some kind of failure of society. It's not always depending on the individual's problems. It's always we are society. And society has a responsibility also to give the possibilities for people and give the possibilities to survive. And that's maybe that's why that we have ended that homelessness because of poverty. But this is because of our Scandinavian welfare system, and we have built it since the Second World War. So it has a long tradition also.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for that, and thank you for the question, Senator Quinn. It strikes me at a time when internationally we're dealing with issues of mistrust of government, this notion that it's a failure of society versus a failure of individuals when people need support and assistance is one that's a really important message, I think, to reinforce. So thank you for that. And one of the questions we have is someone is asking about the responsibility of municipalities. And here we have, of course, federal, provincial responsibilities, and then municipalities. And how was that, if you could please elaborate on the role of municipalities and whether they're part of resourcing or whether it's more federal resources used?
It's in the legislation level, it's the municipal are the ones who has the responsibility to prevent the homelessness, and they have taxation right to municipal level, so they can find money for that. But also the state supports financially a little bit the municipalities to tackle this question. But now, after the new Social Reform Act, the welfare counties has responsibility to provide all the services for people experiencing homelessness and at the risk of become homeless, to give all the support they need, and to find also, and the state, by the state system, we have an institution who support and gives the benefits for individual people. We have different system now and a new system. We are not just trying to find a new way to survive in this new situation, but the welfare counties has responsibility of the services. Municipalities have the responsibility to prevent the homelessness and try to, by the housing policy, to make sure that there is enough homes and enough affordable homes for people in need. And the state is the one has the system to support to build those state subsidized homes to to those municipalities and cities that need them most. And nowadays, there are some minor municipalities that don't get support and they don't need it, but the bigger cities are the ones who need most to support and who has built most of those affordable homes too, because people are concentrating on bigger cities. Urbanism is a global phenomenon, so there's nothing new for you. But also the homeless persons tend to move to bigger cities. And that's why also the capital of Finland is also the capital of homelessness. And Helsinki has put in big effort to tackle the homelessness question. And that's why, as you have mentioned, if you visit Helsinki, you probably don't see any rough sleepers there.
Right.
Yeah,
Senator
yes,
Kingston.
I will
Nope,
just add
sorry.
really quickly that, for example, I think Helsinki has done really good work also regarding the zoning, that they own almost 70% of the land by themselves. And of course, that makes the zoning for affordable housing and all the other services a little bit easier, considering that if city doesn't own any of the land. So I think in that sense, Helsinki has done really smart way that they only lease the land nowadays and rarely sell any of the land they own. That also helps a lot.
That's fascinating. Yeah, to lease the land. I know that when you were talking about multi-million dollar or multi-million euro, well, when you convert the euros to dollars, it was multi-million dollar homes right beside social housing. Here we have a lot of issues with, not in my backyard types of mentalities of pushing out that kind of housing. But the fact that it's not discernibly different from the multi-million dollar homes where the housing is. And it reminds me of when I was in Scandinavia a few years ago and people were talking about homelessness issue, and I was looking around saying, where's the homelessness? And the fact that you count couch surfing as well as people sleeping rough on the street and people who are in shelters as homeless, I think is an innovative way to think about it, because we tend to think of only the tent cities or the people that are visibly on the streets sometimes, and that misses millions of people worldwide, certainly. And I know Senator Kingston had a question as well, so I'll let you.
Thank you so much for your the information that you've given and just the inspiration that you give, I guess, for being able to end homelessness. I want you to talk a little bit more, if you can, about the financing piece. You had two different ways of helping to finance the housing, since housing stock, of course, is necessary before you can do the housing first model at all. Could you tell me a little bit more about how that financing works?
There's every year the government decide of the financing limits, how much per year you can build state subsidized homes, and it's normally about from 8,000 to 9,000 per year, and it includes also those investment grants for homes for people in special needs, with special needs for elderly people, homeless persons, handicapped, and so on. And then there's the majority is for normal affordable homes for people with low incomes. And then the state also want to make sure that they don't take a risk for taxpayers. That's why they every year they also has made the decision that most of those grants should be they are dedicated to the bigger cities and the surroundings, the surrounding municipalities around bigger cities, because those are those areas where the investment they see that it's worth it. And because they want to be also sure that if you use taxpayers' money, you have to be very careful that it gives the all the profit you can get, not in a financial way, but also the humane and the social results, the best social results for society. And the way is that, but you as an investor, like in Y Foundation, we are the 4th largest landlord in Finland, and the only only the non-profit landlord that we have apartments or around whole Finland. So that we also invest from 5% to 20% our own money. So that's part of the system, that the all risk is not under taxpayers' shoulder and on the state. And after 40 years, the state is free from the responsibility, because we as a building owner has paid the loans back to banks, and the guarantees they will sorry, I don't know the exact word, but they get out of that responsibility. And there's very little harm for state of this system. It has worked very well. Of course, we complain here in Finland of some minor details, but that's typical. Just forget that in overall, it has worked through decades.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for your presentations. There was one last question about aging, but I see that Juha has put that answer in the response, that they certainly need more resources for aging and for immigrant population as well. I want to respect everybody's time and end on time, because I know we all have things, other commitments. I want to thank everybody for attending, especially our presenters. Both Juha and Dea have provided a wealth of information about possible future endeavors and some visionary ideas, but also some realistic ideas about what can happen, as you've shown, in terms of the results. And I want to thank all of my colleagues, senators, members of parliament, staff, and interested groups who've attended the meeting, and for your engagement on these issues. We look forward to continuing to work together. And our co-chair, Sean Casey, apologized for having to leave early. He was, the Health Committee is actually touring Shepherds of Good Hope, a homeless shelter here in Ottawa this morning, and so he had to leave to that. We will likely issue a press release as well, highlighting some of what's possible, especially given that today is the second day of the homelessness forum that is being held here in Ottawa as well. So thank you to everybody, to all of you who are doing this work every day. Much appreciation, and we will continue to work on this and the interconnections, of course, between this poverty and the need for more universally accessible social, economic, and health supports for people throughout this country and the world. So thank you very, very much, and take good care, everybody.
Thank you so much. And anytime you want to visit Finland, you are very welcome to visit also.
I'm coming. I'm looking next November maybe. Yeah. So there we go.
It's the best month to visit, November. So dark, slushy, and everything between.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much, and take good care.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Yeah. Thank you.